guys, I'm Janet on occasion, and today playing another campaign lore play. So yeah, as you can see, we've got so many territories now. I've got so much to talk about, but I do want to finish talking about the Undercity in Middenhaeim, because that stuff is just too cool. There's so much going on under there, because you know, it's a big mountain. You know, it's Warhammer, and you know, there's always a lot of stuff going on inside mountains. You know, dwarves, Skaven, Beastmen. You know, who knows? So it's always fun. So yeah, so let's talk about that, and we're going to have to hurry through it because you'll see by the end of this episode why we really need to start moving on to other things. So spoilers. Anyway, so the Undercity. Human history records that the rock was untouched when Arta and the Teutogens found it, and accords the local dwarves only a minor role in assisting them to reach the top of the holy Ulrichsberg. But dwarven records tell a different story. Before humans came to found a city here, the rocks on which Middenhaeim now stands was known to the dwarves as Grashiak Grungni, or Grungni's Tower. For centuries, dwarven miners had laboured within the rock, bringing out a steady stream of gold and other minerals from its core. The tunnels beneath the city almost led to the city's downfall during the siege in 1750. The tunnels were sealed, and ever since then, Middenhaim's leaders have been aware of the risk of an attack from below. However, stories have persisted of extensive tunnel networks still open below the city, and there have been isolated incidents involving creatures bursting forth from the sewer system and causing havoc until they are finally destroyed. During the recent siege, the Undercity was almost as hotly contested as the walls and gates on the top of the Ulrichsberg. Beastmen repeatedly probed the foot of the rock for openings, while some fierce underground actions were fought against encroaching Skaven by mixed forces of dwarfen tunnel fighters and the city's rat catchers. Immediately following the withdrawal of the Chaos forces encircling Middenhaeim, Graf Boris ordered a thorough sweep of all known tunnels and sewers, and the sealing off of any tunnels that had been broken through. This was carried out rapidly by the Dwarfen Engineers Guild, but the fact is that no one knows exactly how many tunnels there are. Countless buildings in the city stand on deep cellars, and for centuries the tunnels and sewers have been used to move goods and conduct other business that is best carried out away from the surface and the notice of the authorities. More than one nest of Chaos cultists has been found conducting their unspeakable rites in a secret rock-hewn temple beneath an innocent-looking building, and even the dwarfs admit that it will take some time to discover the true extent of any new tunnels dug by the Skaven during the course of the siege. So, moving on to the sewer system in particular. Middenhaim's sewers radiate outward and downward from the middle of the city, finally ejecting all the city's waste down the side of the Ulrichsberg at key points. Heavy iron gates seal the points where they exit the rock, and these were magically reinforced in the early days of the siege to prevent their being used in a surprise attack on the city. During the siege, they were patrolled regularly by forces of sewer jacks. Sewer jacks, by the way, are a specialised force under the command of the City Watch, whose purpose it is to keep the sewer system and the Undercity secure. A certain amount of courage is required to police the fetid tunnels beneath Middenhaeim, but the sewer jacks are less choosy in their recruiting policy than the other armed forces, partly because there is nearly always a shortage of volunteers for this dangerous and unpleasant duty. A typical patrol of sewer jacks is 6 to 8 strong. So, now you know what a sewer jack is. There's also dwarfen tunnel fighters down there patrolling it, as well as assorted troops had somehow been drawn the ire of their commanding officers. It was not a popular posting. All agreed that someone had to do it, but most people thought it should be someone else. So, then we have the upper tunnels. An extensive network of tunnels connects to the sewer system at several points. The entrances to most of them have been blocked with rubble and other debris, but there is no guarantee that all entrances have been found. The upper tunnels typically fall into the following categories. First, you have the cellars. Many houses in Middenhaeim have cellars, and some of them, especially those beneath the homes of the wealthy, can be quite expansive. In addition to cellars providing cool, dry storage for food and wine, many of the wealthier families maintain private crypts beneath their houses, as well as strong rooms for their wealth. Wealthy dwarfs often have extensive underground homes, with the surface building existing only as a nod to convention. Then we also have the Catacombs. The crowded state of the Moors Park Cemetery is due in part to its inability to expand outwards, but, unbeknownst to the bulk of Middenheimers, it has been expanding downward for several centuries. The catacombs are entered through a hidden trapdoor in the Chapel of Moor. Stairs lead down to a labyrinth of tunnels lined with crypts and ossuaries. Originally, this was the burial ground of the city's dwarfen population, where they could be laid, according to tradition, in the good rock that gave them birth. However, with surface burial plots becoming harder to obtain, the Cult of Moor came to an arrangement with the dwarfs, and a branch of the catacombs was made available for the burial of other races. The priests of Moor have always been sensitive to the danger of an attack from below. Just one necromancer getting into the catacombs could slowly raise an army, and burst out onto the surface to cause untold damage. For this reason, they have been kept a closely guarded secret, known only to the priests of Moor, the dwarfs, and the city's rulers. During the siege, the catacombs were closely watched for any signs of Skaven, or other enemies breaking through, but they remained secure. Then of course you have the Smugglers Tunnels. So hardest to defend was the network of secret tunnels that has been created over centuries by thieves, smugglers, and others who want to move about the city without attracting the attention of the watch on the surface. By their very nature, the authorities know of only a small proportion of these tunnels, and new links are constantly being added as old passages are discovered and their users arrested. So here you can see we've got a quest turning up, and so that's that's always fun. So we will be doing the quest battle in a little bit. So I'll have to be quiet when when we get the speech, because who doesn't love a good speech, right? So anyway, it's good that Voltmar's keeping busy. So the shadowy figures that control Middenhaim's underworld were quick to realise that they had just as much to lose as the Graf himself if the city should fall to the forces of chaos. Therefore, they deployed their own forces in the defence of their own parts of the Undercity. Although they lacked the extensive training of the sewer jacks, rat catchers, and tunnel fighters, these defenders were every bit as effective in stemming the advancing Skaven. Today, blockages are being cleared slowly and cautiously, as the underworld follows the rest of Middenhaim in trying to return to business as usual. Also, there's the Under Palace. So any Middenheimer knows that the beautiful buildings of the palace complex are just the outward part of a much larger establishment. Beneath the palace are the ducal vaults, where generations of Todbringers lie buried alongside even earlier Grafs. Also beneath the palace are the city mint and treasury, along with the vaults holding the Graf's private fortune. All of these are protected with the very best traps and magical defences that can be obtained. The surrounding rock is magically hardened to the toughness of diamond by Gold College rituals, making it almost impossible to tunnel through. It is whispered, as well, that a number of powerful earth spirits patrol the area, bound with enchantment so they will attack any intruder before he even comes close to the excavated areas. There is a persistent rumour of a secret escape passage, spiralling down from the Graf's quarters to the inner palace, to the foot of the rock. Such a passage did once exist, but the early Todbringer Grafs had it filled in, and made back into seamless rock by a combination of dwarfen engineering and magical rituals. The very idea of a Todbringer Graf skulking in secret was an insult to the family's sense of honour, and more practically, a passage that could be used to escape from the Graf's private chambers might also be used to infiltrate them. And then you've also got the Undgrin. So the dwarfs of Grungni's Tower had a thriving underground community, long before the first human arrived on the scene. Unsuspected by most of the surface, these chambers and passages are still lovingly maintained by the descendants of the dwarfs who made them. Respect for tradition and craftsmanship demands no less. This complex goes by the Caslid name of Undgrin, which means the underway, and it stands at the heart of the city's dwarfen community. So Undgrin is also a word used when talking about the the sort of the underways, the underpasses that dwarves used to travel, and they have a stance for that in the game to be able to move quickly. Undgrin is also the word used for that. So anyway, the main entrances to the underway are through the Chapel of Grungni, which we mentioned before, and the council chamber of the Dwarfen Engineers Guild. Most dwarfs are aware that the tunnel linking the two buildings, but only those of local clans and their closest friends and allies know the true extent of the underway. It is far too small to qualify as a dwarf hold, although some Middenhaim dwarfs refer to it as Karak Graziak, the Tower Hold, with a mixture of local pride and ironic good humour. And so, we got the speech coming up, so I will be quiet for a second.
Sons of Sigmar, to me! Out there in that fen is a heretic, holding the Jade Griffin to his chest like the grubby thief he is. To think that the talisman, a symbol of our cult blessed by Magnus himself, is now in the clutches of this necromancer and his vampire consorts. No! I say again, no! Hunt down this filth! Purge this place and strike down any who dare to rise again. By the comet, that is my decree!
Thank you, Volkmar. So, rousing speech there. Anyway, the underway runs deeper than most of the other tunnel complexes that link directly to the surface, and the dwarves have a long tradition of defending it against encroaching Skaven and other invaders. Knowing of the disgrace that would result if a single enemy reached the city through the dwarfen tunnel, they made sure that the Undgrim was among the safest parts of the city during the siege. Which I think is just so cool. The fact they've got a city down there that no one knows about. Well, at least a town. And although saying that, the Carracks were absolutely astounding, you know, back in the day. So, although they don't consider it a Carrack, it's probably massive. It's probably pretty damn big. So, yeah, pretty awesome that. I just love that. I wish that sort of stuff was reflected in Total War. Can you imagine if there was just like a secret dwarf town there? You know, it'd be so cool. Anyway, so then we have the deeper tunnels. So although they have, so yeah, you can tell this is a big mountain. Okay, bigger than that custom map would suggest. But anyway, so although they've been more active during the siege, the Skaven have secretly been at work beneath Middenhaeim for centuries. There have been comparatively few of them, and they have fought bitter inter-clan wars as well as cooperating from time to time. But they are not the only peril to be found inside the Ulrichsburg. In long-forgotten caves and tunnels, adventurers may encounter all manner of dangers, such as the Beastmen. Even before the Beast Lord Kazrak One-Eye sent scouts into the caves at the foot of the Ulrichsburg to find a way to the city above, the rock has been known as a haunt to Beastmen. This may seem strange, but the Middenheimers have never taken much interest in the land immediately beneath them. They rely on the sheer walls of rock to protect them, and as long as the causeways and gates are secure and the roads are safe, they tend to ignore everything else. Most of the rough terrain in the dense forest at the foot of the rock has never been cleared. Travellers on the causeways pass right over it without a second thought, and from time to time adventurers and others will venture into the woods hunting beastmen, but no concerted effort has been made to tame the area. It is too rocky to have any value as farmland, and no one wants to live at the foot of the rock, where filth washes down from the sewers above. The nearest settlement is the shantytown of Warrenburg, near the end of the western causeway. This now lies in ruins, having been completely destroyed by the besiegers. The beastmen living here have never become strong enough to pose a threat to the city, and no one has seen any advantage in hunting them down and destroying them. Some Middenheimers came to regard them, if not exactly as pets, then as colourful local wildlife, and distinguished Middenheim from lesser cities. And the Knight Panther of the Graf's personal bodyguard adopted a beastman head as part of their insignia. Pretty weird, isn't it? Anyway. In the wake of the siege, however, attitudes are changing. The sight of any army of beastmen assaulting the causeways and searching for ways up inside the rock came as a shock, and the people of Middenheim realised how dangerous their complacency could have been. Although the city's army is away and the Watch has its hands full, simply maintaining order, a number of small independent groups have been organising coordinated sweeps around the foot of the rock, clearing out beastmen and any other dangerous creatures they encounter. In addition, the Commission for Public Works has announced a standing payment of 1 gold coin per tunnel or chamber for accurate maps that add to their existing charts of the tunnels at the rock's base. So that's pretty cool, you know, making strides to, you know, actually learn about your city. So it's about time, I think. So also though, in addition to beastmen, more natural, but no less dangerous, creatures may lair in the caves of the foot of the rock. These could include bears and great cats, as well as other creatures. Flying creatures may nest on ledges and in caves that open higher up on the rock. Eagles, including great eagles, may decide to nest and breed there, and some of them may decide that Middenhaeim offers an easy hunting ground to feed their nestlings. Killing such creatures will protect the citizens, but capturing them alive, especially hatchlings that are young enough to be trained, can be much more profitable. Many dark tales are told of secret caves deep in the heart of the Ulrichsburg, where great danger and even greater treasure may be found. The vast majority of them are just stories. Some may even be deliberate ploys to lure incautious adventurers into an ambush by thieves and other desperate types. Adventurers often have money and expensive equipment after all, and a good corpse cleanly killed can fetch a high price on the black market from physicians and others. However, some of the stories may have a grain of truth to them. Far beneath the city, in long-abandoned Skaven tunnels, or partially collapsed mine workings, despite what many dwarfs claim, even their passages can collapse, given the passing of many centuries, who knows what creatures may be lurking, or what desperate plans may be in progress. Skaven and Beastmen are not the only remnants left behind when Archaon withdraw his forces. Demons may haunt long-abandoned subterranean temples and catacombs beneath the city, and others may be waiting to take advantage of the army's in the army's absence, preparing an attack on the city that feels itself safe. To a follower of Nurgle, for example, the unsanitary conditions brought about by the siege and the presence of so many refugees in makeshift housing is a gift. Although slower than battle, disease kills just as surely, and the conditions are ripe for it to spread. And guys, that finally finishes off Middenhaeim. We're finally done. So while Voltmar kills these, these forces of the undead, rather well actually. I gotta say, in campaign, if you bring a load of halberdiers, like the sort of typical, what the state troops should be bringing along, really. What any Empire army should have. If you bring against the undead in campaign, you'll just clean up, because they tend to just bring trash infantry, which the halberdiers can deal with, or cavalry, or the occasional Vargolf or large unit. So halberdiers just cleave through all of it. It's fantastic. And you don't have to worry about missile fire, so their lack of shields doesn't really matter. But anyway, I'm oh my god, I'm actually talking about the game for once. That's a revelation. Okay, so let's move on to our next subject. We're going to talk about Nordland now, seeing as how we've got a foothold there already. So yeah, definitely need to start talking about that, and I will. So it's actually known as the Grand Barony of Nordland, and it's ruled by the Elect Count Theodoric Gorser, Grand Baron of Nordland, Prince of Salismond, Lord of Laurelorn, and Duke of Marienburg, Terror of the Norskans, which is probably, I think that's probably my favourite title out of all of them so far. Especially Duke of Marienburg. He doesn't have any... I mean, he's got kind of a claim to Marienburg, but they don't care. They're not interested. So anyway, so the capital is Salismond, and their major exports are agriculture, sheep and goat's cheese, wool and woolen goods, and timber. So in law, the writ of Nordland extends from the Ostland border, west to the edge of the wasteland, and north from the Great North Road to the shores of the Sea of Claws. The elector counts of Nordland have accumulated an impressive collection of titles and claims over the millennia. I told you, right? So, which, if enforced, would make them rulers of most of the north of the empire. Reality has a way of foiling the most grandiose ambitions, however, and the count's rule extends to barely half of the lands they claim. Two great forests blanket Nordland, leaving humans to exist in pockets carved out of the solid woodlands and along the barren shoreline. The eastern quarter includes the edges of the Forest of Shadows, which dominates Ostland. It extends as far as the Ehrengrad-Middenhaeim Road, crossing it north of the Bekerhoven, and finally ending on the banks of the river Sals. The Forest of Shadows has a dark, dread reputation in Ostland, and that reputation has carried over to the people of Nordland. Predatory giant spiders are known to lurk deep in the forest, while beastmen and worse have been seen in increasing numbers since the war began. Lumbering parties rarely travel far into the woods anymore, unless accompanied by armed soldiers. The increased danger has led to a fall in timber harvests, hurting the local economy and leading to rumblings that the Count is not doing his job. So can I just say there, the reputation for the giant spiders lurking in the forest. That's actually represented on the map, I believe. On what is it? It's the middle mountain. The mountain in the north of the map, where Hergig is sort of in the middle of it. It's that forest basically, and they've got a load of spiders on the map. They've got a load of spider webs and stuff on there. So I think that's really cool. It's represented in game. That reputation has carried over to to the map design. So anyway, west of Salismond and the Silver Hills, sorry, above it lies the Laurelorn Forest, which stretches west to the borders with the Wasteland. Technically a part of the Count's domain, the Laurelorn is in truth a wholly independent realm. Its rulers are the reclusive Wood Elves of Laurelorn, the descendants of the High Elves who chose not to leave the Old World at the end of the war with the Dwarfs. By agreement with the elect Counts of Nordland, the Elves allow Imperials to settle the area between the rivers Sals and Dempst, which enters the Sea of Claws at Hagendorf. The agreement strictly limits numbers, however, and the Elves must approve before any new settlements are made. This they have been loath to do, placing many restrictions on what the settlements may harvest from the forest. The humans chafe under these restrictions, and nobles have pressured Grand Baron Gorser to demand a renegotiation. Impatient as ever, some humans have made illegal settlements in the area, which the Elves have threatened to remove by force if need be. Some observers fear a coming clash between the Elector Count's knights and the warriors of Laurelorn, but the war has held Salismond's hand so far. There are worries, however, that the Elves may see this as a time to assert their rights. Beyond the Dempst is the core of Laurelorn, a place Nordlanders call the Witch's Wood. Out of their superstitious fear of the Elf Queen, Imperials are forbidden to cross it into it under pain of death. Even the Elector Counts of Nordland are under this ban. What lies within the Witch's Wood is unknown. Some have speculated that the Elves have no capital, living a nomadic life under the trees. Old books, on the other hand, mention a nameless city of glass deep in its heart, a place that glows with its own light. Whatever the truth, it is certain that neither creatures of chaos nor greenskins last once they enter the Laurelorn, for the Elves defend their home ferociously against all comers. The coast of Nordland is a desolate place, where a hard people eke out a living from the sea. The whole coast is frequently blanketed by thick fogs and lashed by storms in fall and winter. This has made the Nordland coast a tough home for the Imperial fleet. But since Marienburg seceded from the Empire, the Ocean Fleet has had no choice but to base itself here. The fleet's primary anchorage is the growing town of Deiterschaffen, which uses the province's ample timber in a burgeoning shipbuilding program. From the westernmost settlement at Hagendorf, east to New Emschrank, the shore comprises sandy lowlands, often interrupted by marsh and bog. West towards Norden, the shore becomes more rocky and covered in shingle as it rises to the coastal hills of Ostland. Here on the Drosselspule Bay, fishermen harvest vast numbers of herring and cod, most of which is salted and exported south. Wreckers are still common along Nordland's coast, as some people supplement their meagre incomes with the pickings of ships they have led to their deaths. This has occasionally brought conflict with the authorities in Marienburg, whose livelihood depends on the free flow of trade. So let's talk about the people. So the people of Nordland are descendants of the ancient Vasjutone tribe. Close borders with the it's Was, W-A-S, but I think Vas, right? 'Cause it's sort of Germanic. So the Vasjutones of Ostland, so maybe Utones. The Vasjutones? Anyway, of Ostland. The Nordland branch of the tribe eventually became estranged from the more easterly settlements of their peoples. Eventually, the early Nordlanders fell in battle, becoming vassals of the belligerent Teutogens and frequent victims of Norscan raids, the Teutogens being the ones that eventually settled Middenhaeim. During the chaos that reigned in the aftermath of the Great Plague, much of Nordland's coast of the river valleys were invaded and colonized by the Norscans, leading to a mingling of the tribal bloodlines. Emperor Mandred Ratslayer, faced with graver threats elsewhere, had little time to answer the pleas of the Nordlanders, much to their horror. As time passed and populations mixed, the Nordlanders adopted many of the customs of their Norscan cousins. Courts frequently resort to trial by combat, the contest taking place on a white sheet pegged to the ground. The first person to stain the sheet red with his blood is declared the loser and the guilty party. Older houses often have runes carved into their doors and window frames for luck and spiritual protection, and along the coast of the Longshore, the longhouse style is still common. At feasts and gatherings, Norscan bragging contests have evolved into more genteel storytelling events, with each speaker trying to outdo the last. So great is the Nordlander love of stories that they have become famous around the Empire as great storytellers. Popular tales range from historical epics to low comedy, mythology, and horror. The folk of this province are said to be amongst the loudest and frankest of all the Empire. They seem to lack any subtlety, tact, or common sense. Several local legends involve heroes who blurt out the truth at a vital moment, thus saving the day. Other provinces point out that this is because Nordlanders are too stupid to lie. At their best, Nordlanders are solid, straightforward, and honest folk, lacking in guile and looking down upon the mealy-mouthed words of politicians, poets, and soft Reichlanders. At their worst, Nordlanders are churlish, uncouth, and thoughtless speakers. Even the merchants of Nordland have this blunt approach, though they seem to be fine with double-dealing. Indeed, they have found that shouting the final price of something loudly and repeatedly has a profound effect upon merchants used to the subtleties of barter and negotiation. Many provinces point out that this is because of their mongrel, Vast-Jutone, Teutogen, and Norscan bloodlines. This mixed heritage has been a source of Nordlander shame. Modern Imperials look on Norscans with a mixture of admiration and fear, seeing them as both powerful warriors and wild, uncivilized barbarians, not to be trusted around one's daughters or sheep. A popular Imperial saying runs, "Character is in the blood," meaning that ancestry determines character. Thus, Nordlanders, though of the Empire, are often regarded as not quite one of us, rougher and more uncouth even than the wild and hairy Middenlanders. Another cause for discomfort among Nordlanders comes from the current fashion among nobles, especially in the north, for tracing ancestry back to one of the founding tribes. The purer the background, the higher one's status climbs. And the summit, is the tracing of the lineage back to one of the founding chiefs. Alone among the provinces, the Nordlanders' ancestors were conquered by outsiders, which is a source of embarrassment for status-conscious nobles, particularly when dealing with arrogant Midlanders or Stirland bumpkins. The Midlander claimed to have bowed only before Sigmar himself is particularly galling. To compensate, most Nordlanders are more vocally and demonstratively loyal to the Empire and the cult of Ulrich than almost anyone else in the Empire. Their efforts ring hollow to some, while others see them as exemplars of duty and patriotism. Whatever their motive, there is no doubting their bravery in battle. When in an army with troops from other provinces, Nordlanders are almost rash in their desire to close with the enemy. At the Battle of Frote in 2421, the Nordland pikes were so anxious to come to grips with the forces of Chaos Warriors that they charged before any order was given, leaving them isolated on the battlefield and their own army's flank exposed. Since then, Imperial generals have been quietly advised to treat the Nordlanders as they would a hound on a leash to keep them under control. Renowned hunters and foresters, the Nordlanders' woodland skills are so strong that even Hochlanders and the folk of the Talabek will grudgingly admit that they are not too bad. Certainly, Nordlanders are close to the land. The province has one of the largest communities of Raya worship in the north of the Empire. Raya being sort of god of agriculture, really. It's Tal's wife. Tal is the more wild part of, so I think Mother Nature, right? Tal is sort of the wild bit of it, and Raya is the sort of the nice bit, the gardens and things that we've sort of tamed. So anyway. Centred around the clannish villages south of Hagendorf. The worship of the Harvest Mother without her consort Tal is considered particularly dangerous in some circles of thought. Talabaklanders are in particular dismissive of this woman's worship. They whisper that the elves join the humans for their religious rites at old stone circles deep in the woods. Though speculation is rife, no one knows what really goes on in these joint ceremonies. The Elect Count is not comfortable with this, and is considering sending investigators to determine if the people of Dempst Vale are planning a revolt. A Nordlander's accent is one of the most distinctive of the Empire. Their speech is very harsh and fast, almost barked out rather than spoken. Nordland singing is said to sound like gravel in a barrel rolling down a hill. So that's fun. They also have some fun sayings, actually. They say, it's a Norskan bargain, to mean something agreed to under threat of violence. They also say, a soiled conscience only makes brown breeches. Only the guilty have something to fear. Over Juten Way, which means towards Ostland. Nordlanders sometimes use Ostland and Juten interchangeably. So yeah, that must have been a very old tradition to carry. And there we go. Yep, I just showed you in the campaign. That's why I've needed to get a move on, because now I own most of the empire. I just secured 3 provinces with 1 click, so I really need to get a move on. Yeah, bloody hell. Anyway, they also say salt cod, which means a dead person, from the pale, stiff nature of a salted fish. So, yep, a salt cod is a corpse. So that's fun. Now, I feel I should probably talk about at least one of the cities. So I'll probably talk about Salismund. Sorry, Salzenmund. I've been saying Salismund the whole time. Salzenmund, isn't it? Silly me. Anyway, so I'm going to talk about Salzenmund. So that's where the Elect Count lives. It's a population of 7,500, which is considerably less than a lot of the other capitals, might I say. And their main wealth comes from the trade and woodcraft. So, as you'd expect from hearing the rundown of everything else. So, anyway, Salzenmund is the capital of Nordland. Salzenmund rests among hills from which flow the tributaries that join to form the Cellars. And that's why I get Salzenmund, right? It's because it's, the river Cellars. So, anyway, the Elect Counts built a tall castle on top of the hill overlooking the growing city, once the meeting place for the western scions of the vast Jutone tribe. So narrow is the approach that the keep, named the Jutone's Nest, needs no surrounding curtain wall. Just a great keep sits there, watching over the region. It is said by the locals that the Elect Count can see the whole of his province from the window of his throne room, which faces west, so he can keep an eye on the elves of Laurelorn. Salzenmund itself is a sizable town that is currently suffering from the loss of trade along the Ehrengrad-Middenhaeim road. Many travellers and merchants would stop there for its fairs, where even elven goods are available. Brokers sell timber from the Laurelorn here too, which commands a high price because of its exquisite grain, lightness and durability. And Salzenmund is home to the Norden Silversmiths Guild, which controls the trade in finished goods and ingots made from the ore found in the nearby Silver Hills. The smiths of Salzenmund are known for their high-quality work, which is in demand as far away as Astalia and Arabia. So Araby, surely. Anyway. In the town itself, the most notable landmark is the Temple of Ulrich, which is made entirely of wood and has stood for over 2,000 years. A vast 3-storied structure constructed in a hexagonal pattern. The temple is unlike any other Ulrican temple in the Empire or beyond. Some observers detect a resemblance to archaic temples in Norska, leading them to suspect the temple was first built under barbarian influence in the earliest series of migrations and conquests. Inside, the Great Hall is open to the 3rd story, and a smaller version of the eternal flame of the temple in Middenhaeim burns here. Ages of smoke have darkened the timbers within, giving them a smooth black look, and the temple itself an air of sombre purpose. The high priest is Eric Granholm, a close friend of the Count who thinks himself an equal of the R. Ulrich in Middenhaeim, and shares his Count's ambitions for Nordland. Salzenmund is a chartered free town, which means it governs itself in return for certain duties and obligations to its nominal lord, the Elector Count Gjoser. A council of guild masters and landowners makes up the town council, while a burgomaster, chosen yearly from the councillors, handles day-to-day affairs. The current burgomaster is Maximilian von Kirschschlag. I mean, that sounds nonsense, right? It's Kirschschlage. If anyone can pronounce that, that'd be great. Who is quite worried. The war gave the Count authority to demand gifts of money from the town's notables to cover the hiring of mercenaries, which he is in no hurry to pay back. On top of that, the decline in traffic because of the war has led to a decline in revenue that threatens to leave the council members unable to meet the town's financial obligations, since they have already loaned considerable sums to the Count. Now von Kirschschlag, I hope that's even remotely right, anyway, must consider going to the Count for loans to cover the town's expenses. He fears this will give the Count the leverage he needs to demand the return of Salzmann's charter, or the cancellation of his debt to the councillors, either of which would spell ruin for them in the town's liberties. So that's fun. So I do actually want to talk about the Laurelorn Forest as well, which I think I'll do in the next episode, and then immediately get on talking about the other provinces, because I've got a feeling we're going to be sitting on those 3 provinces for quite a while, because well, all that's left is Averheim and Ostermark, is it? So yeah, I don't really have a lot left to cover after this, so I'll just be waiting for the Chaos Invasion, basically, when I'll start talking about Chaos. And once we defeat them, that's the end of the campaign, I reckon. So I do want to get some stuff about elves in there. You know, talked about the Sea Elves slightly when we talk about Marienburg, but not a whole lot. So it would be nice to do a little bit about the Laurelorn Forest, even if it is a very mysterious place. So guys, if you enjoyed this video, then please do comment, like, and subscribe. You know, it really shows me that this is you know, this is something you want to see. And because I really enjoy making it, I'd probably do it anyway. I'd probably do it without you guys, but it is lovely to see that other people are enjoying it. So yeah, so thanks, and yeah, I guess I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one, guys.